Hello, my name is Luke. I work for AccuFi, and I am the lead designer and engineer for Tess. Tess is our tax equity partnership spreadsheet model. It's fast, it's accurate, and it's easy to use. We're very proud of it, so I'm making some videos to help people get started using Tess and to learn more about it. In this video, we are going to work on importing a project model, which is really the first step when you download Tess to get it working to be able to run partnership scenarios for your project. So without any more delay, I'm just going to get started. I'm looking at the Welcome tab of Tess, and I'm going to click on this Import Project Model Here button to take me to this tab. This tab is really your home for importing your project model. It has a list of instructions here, and in this video, we're just going to go through this list. So I'm going to start. First, I'll show you my project model. So I've made a simple project model. It's got a scenarios tab, it's got some settings, and then it's got a monthly calculation. Probably your model is going to be more sophisticated than this one is, and I'm hoping that you're good and familiar with it so that you'll know where to find everything when we get started with putting the values into tests. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so the first thing, import your project model. This is the first step, using the button above. So I'm going to click this button. Okay, so what Tess does is it looks for any other open workbooks. You have to have only one other one open, so just your project model and Tess open. It will find it, and it'll show you the tabs that are visible for you to import. So you should select the tabs that you know that you want. I happen to know that I want all of these, but if you select a tab that you know that you want and it depends on some other tab that you haven't selected, Tess will automatically read those dependencies and import those tabs that tab that you want needs. So when all the tabs come in, all the references between them will work. There won't be any references left over from the workbook that you imported from, and Tess figures all of that out automatically. You don't have to think about it. So that's a really cool feature I really like about Tess. It's made it really easy to do this import step. Since I've selected these tabs, I'm going to just click the import button and we'll watch it work. All right, so it should happen pretty quickly here, and it did. Tabs imported successfully. Nice. And now I can see that I have my scenarios, project settings, and project monthly tab. Perfect. So now my project model is in Tess, and we can do the next step in the instructions. So number 2, set the start and end dates on the partnership settings tab. Okay, so the partnership settings tab is down here. It's this one. And there's a lot of stuff on this tab. I'm going to make a whole separate video to talk about some of the common work that you're going to do on the partnership in this tab. But for now, I happen to know that our start and end dates are right here. And I'm just going to write some formulas to replace these hard-coded values for the start and end date. So I'm going to just type an equals here, go to my scenarios tab where I happen to know I have a partnership start date, click this cell, and then just press enter. And that will fill in the start date for the partnership. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, press equals, go to the scenarios tab, click on this end date, and now my dates are set. And you can see that these cells turn blue because they have a formula in them. Any cells that have a white background are just hard-coded values. They're just inputs, and blue values or blue cells are formulas that either refer off to your project model or refer to other places inside of the test tabs. So what this means is that now if we change the start and end dates in that scenarios tab, the dates for the partnership model will also update. Tess is very good about dynamically updating dates. So all that's set, and we can move on to the next step. That was pretty easy. Okay, step 3, replace the hard-coded values in the project to partnership tab with amounts from the project model. So let's go to that tab. It's right here, project to partnership. And the project to partnership tab, this is where all of the monthly data from your project model is going to move from your project model into Tess. So right now there's just these basic values that are hard-coded in here, and we're going to replace these with formulas that refer to your project model so that when you update things in your project model, those updates flow through to the partnership model inside of Tess. This is the only place where data really needs to be so that it shows up in Tess. So for example, this cash section, any cash that's going into the partnership is going to be here, not anywhere else. So as long as we link up all of our cash from the project model here, we know that it's going to show up in the partnership, and our partnership will use that cash. Okay, so let's get started. So actually, I'm going to start with this fair market value because this is a hard-coded value first. So I'm just going to click this cell, and then like with the dates, I'll press equals. And I happen to know my FMV is in project settings, so I'm going to scroll down and click on total FMV right here. Okay, so when I did that, you'll notice that these cells, something changed. They were green before, and now this one says need run, it's turned yellow. This one says checks failing, it's turned red. So the need run cell tells you when some inputs have changed in the model, and you need to rerun it to get a new valid solution. And then the check cell tells you that some validity check that's making sure the model's in a correct state and giving a correct answer, something there has also failed, and you should address it. Since we're in the middle of updating inputs, I'm going to ignore these for now because we know that we're going to mess up whatever the inputs were when we're not done yet. But when we are done updating all the inputs, this should turn green, and we'll know that we've covered all of our bases. So that will be something to look forward to. Okay, so we've set up the FMV. Let's do the cash. So I'm going to set this title here by typing equals, going to the project monthly tab. And I happen to know I have this operating cash section, and I'm going to click on energy revenue, which is my first cash amount. Okay. Okay, that looks good. And then I want to fill in the values. Now, at this point, it's important to check the dates. So I can see that the first date here for this cell is March of 2021. And you want to make sure that the dates here are matching the dates from the values that you're getting from your project model. So on my project monthly tab, I can see that this first date is also March of 2021. And if there's a mismatch, you just have to make sure that you correct for it with your formulas to make sure that the dates of the amounts in Tess match the project model. Okay, you get it. Okay, so let's put in a formula here. I can just put equals, and then I can put this cell. If you don't feel comfortable with that, or you'd rather write like a SUMIF function, if you know what that is, that also works too. You can write whatever formulas you need to get the values into Tess, just the way that you like them. Okay, so I've set this, and now I'm going to copy it out to the end. The way I like to do it is I like to do Control-C to copy, hold down Shift to highlight, hold down Control to take me to the end, and then click the right arrow. And that highlights all the values that are already here. Let go of everything, Control-V to paste. So now one more left arrow, and I've pasted all the values in. So this is a good time to check the total. I have 511054 as my total, and then in the project monthly tab, same thing, 511054. So that makes me feel good that I've gotten all the values from the project model into Tess, into this project to partnership row. So now, this is nice. I could do that same thing again where I set the title and I set the amounts, but I can also recognize that this row of contracted recs is just one below this one. So on the project to partnership tab, I can just copy this entire row and paste it over the recs, and it should fill in all the values and the title for me. So to do that, I'm going to click the number of the row here, this 45. That highlights the entire row. Control-C to copy, click the 46 to highlight this row, Control-V to paste, and now everything's filled in. So I got contracted recs, and I got all zeros. And I'm pretty sure that this matches the project model. If I go and look at the project model, that's here. Indeed, all zeros. So not that interesting. Okay, next step. We have a bit of a problem. We have one more row here of cash, but we only have 2 rows here. This is a really cool feature of Tess I'm really proud of. This is not a big deal. All we have to do is just add some rows to this section of the project to partnership tab, and those values will also be included in the cash that goes into the partnership model. So you can have as many or as few rows as you need to match up with your project model. And even if you have multiple projects, you can just add all the rows that you need to bring in all the cash from all your projects. It's all very scalable and adaptable to whatever project model you have. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is to, again, click on the row number to highlight the whole row, Control C, and then click on the row number for the row that's below, right click, and then choose Insert Copied Cells. So that's a really nice feature because it does two things. One is it inserts a row, and then the next thing is it pastes the row that we copied. So you get two moves for the price of one click. And now we have our expense row. So you can see our total 86,033. Let's check that, 86,033. So that looks good. Okay, so we have these three. We inserted a row. We actually need to do another one. My project model, I happen to know, has this uncontracted rec row. So I'm going to just do the same thing I just did, where I copy this row, right click, insert copied cells. But now I got to be careful because this is a total. This is now referring to the total on the project to partnership, or sorry, on the project model. But I don't want it to do that. I want it to refer to the recs, so I got to be careful and replace this. I'm going to do equals uncontracted recs. Nice. And then same thing for the values, equals uncontracted recs. Okay, press enter. All right. And then same as before, I'm going to Control C to copy, hold Shift to highlight, hold Control to go to the end, right arrow, let go of everything, Control V to paste, and then left arrow. And that should fill in all the values from the project model. Total check, 2983. Project monthly, 2983. Nice, cool. Okay, so there we go. We have all of our cash into Tess. And what this means is that if we change some settings in the project model, if we change scenarios, if we change some assumptions, the values will flow from that project model into Tess because we've set up the formulas here that refer to the project model. So we're all set. Let's keep going. Okay, so we have a row here for production tax credits. We don't have any PTCs in our project, so we can ignore this. Please don't delete these rows. You can leave them where they are and just hide it. Deleting this row will really break the way that Tess works, and I don't recommend doing that. So I'm just going to click this button here and hide it and just move on. Okay, next we have operating taxable revenue and operating taxable expense. So you may be wondering, okay, well, Luke, we just filled in all these values from the project model. Why do we separately also have to fill them out for taxable revenue and taxable expense? And the reason is that operating cash and TI meaning taxable income, kind of the catch-all term for revenue and expense, they're not necessarily the same. There can be cash rows, cash streams that let's say like a working capital loan where you're having cash coming in and out of the project. Overall, it totals to zero, and there's no tax, no TI associated with it. But the cash effect really does matter to the return of the project and of the partnership. So that's an example of some cash that you need to put in, but you wouldn't put in a corresponding taxable row for that. So it's important to have them be separate. Another reason is if there's a difference in timing. So like if the cash is delayed, it's kind of a common thing, then you need the cash to be separate from the TI. So in my case, I happen to know that they're all the same after saying all that. So I'm just going to write formulas on this tab that refer to the cash values because I know that they're going to be the same. And if they change, it's not a big deal. I can just go in and change these formulas to refer to some different set of values that are on the project model, for example. Okay, so I set these. I'm going to set this to refer up to the cash value I already have. I'm going to go a little bit faster now because I don't need you don't need to sit there and watch me do this. Okay, so I have filled in this. There's a keyboard shortcut for highlighting the whole row, Shift spacebar, that highlights the whole row, kind of cool. And then I'm going to paste these. Okay, so unfortunately it pulled expense into here, so I have to modify this one to look at uncontracted recs. Okay, as you can see, I've done a lot of Excel, so I can go pretty quick here. Okay, all right, there we go. Those are our taxable streams. All right, so good job, us. We've got the project to partnership tab filled out. So let's go see what our next instruction is. Step 4, replace hard-coded depreciation amounts on the depreciation tab. Don't forget to copy down formulas. Well, that shouldn't be a problem for us because we already have some practice. So let's go to the depreciation tab. Okay, so the depreciation tab, it works similarly to the project to partnership tab in that we have these rows here, and then we have the ability to insert more as we need. Same thing as the project to partnership tab. If you have, say, multiple projects, just insert more rows. Insert as many as you need. Tess can handle them. So this depreciation calculator has been checked against ABC, which is really reliable for depreciation. So I have a lot of confidence in it. I recommend that you use it. Okay, so I happen to know, if I go to project settings, I happen to know that I have 5 depreciation types, but there's only 3 in here, but that's not a big deal. We know what to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this whole row, copy. I'm going to start here and I'm going to drag down one. I'm going to start in the 15, drag down one. So now I've highlighted 2 whole rows. Same as before, right click, insert copied cells. And then what that does is that inserts 2 rows instead of just 1. So that's kind of a convenient way of inserting more rows than just one at a time, because you might want to insert a lot of them. Okay, so same as before, I'm going to set these titles to match my titles here. And then I'm also going to fill out this basis here to match the basis from my project model. Okay, copy that down. Okay, and now when I did that, this turned green, which is kind of cool. So that means that now we're passing all of our checks. We're not done. We still have a few things we have to do, but at least we're passing all of our checks and we have a valid set of inputs, which is kind of exciting. We're getting close. There's a couple more things to do. One of them is make sure that these titles actually match the methods that we're using. So this one, 5-year makers, that's right, because this is a makers method, 5-year life right here. 15-year makers, that's also matching. 20-year SL, that's matching. Okay, so this is 39-year SL. So we already have SL, and this has got to be 39 on the life. So that's good. And then non-depreciable. So if you have non-depreciable, you can set it to land, because land is not depreciable. And then also first year, set that to land. Okay, so interesting. Check started failing when I did that. A little bit surprised, but we'll see. Figure it out. Okay, so this is looking good. Oh, the life. It's important when you do the life too that for non-depreciable, you make it the maximum. You make it 40 years. That was the cause of my problem there. So for non-depreciable, use a nice long 40-year life. That's 40 years, I believe, is the maximum number of years in test. So that puts it all the way out at the end. Okay, good. Okay, there's one more thing we got to do, the credits. So this credit here, this is the investment tax credit section. I happen to know my project has investment tax credits. So what I'm going to do, this is defined in terms of this basis reduction, and I'm going to change this actually to be defined the other way around. So I'm going to say equals here, project settings, and then I'm going to click this ITC amount on my project model. Okay, good. And then I'm going to redefine this basis reduction. I'm going to say equals credit divided by 2, because basis reduction is always credit divided by 2. Okay, so that looks good. I got my credit in. My checks are passing, so that's a good sign. So let's go see where we're at on our instructions. Did that one. Number 5, set up the partnership on the Partnership Settings tab. So let's go there and check that out. So like I said earlier, this Partnership Settings tab has a lot of inputs. There's just a lot going on here, and I'm going to do a separate video on the most common ones that you're going to be using. So for now, I'm just going to leave them all the way they are and just move on. So we'll leave this, and then we'll just assume that the defaults in here are good enough for us and go on to step 6, which is click the Run button on the top bar of any tab to run the partnership model. Okay, cool. So this is the Run button. I'm not going to click it yet because I want to talk a little bit about what it means to run Tess. Tess has an advanced solving algorithm that is really unique and really means that the spreadsheet will both run quickly and it will run with one button click. There's no need to go to some special place and look at some cells and click multiple buttons. Don't need to do any of that. You're just going to click this Run button, and you can find the Run button on any Test tab, which is really convenient. So I'm going to just go back here and just click Run, and let's see what happens. Boom, that's it, done. Okay, and then the last step is see results on the dashboard. So let's go to the dashboard and see our results. And here we go. So the dashboard, this is a place where you can see kind of key metrics for both partners. We have our investor and our sponsor. And I've done my best to fill in values I thought people would find useful. If you feel like you want to add to this or change it, feel free. This is just a starting place for the dashboard. And then, of course, the other thing here is the checks. So there's many checks, as you can see. And if you find that one is failing or you see that this turns red, and you can go here and get an idea of what the problem is and where you need to look to figure out how to get Tess back into a working state. Okay, so you may notice that our flip IRR here, this is 1.46%. And what I want to do is show you how we can use Tess to solve for an equity split, solve for an investor contribution that's going to get us a target flip IRR. So to do that, I'm going to click this Solve For button. I'm going to choose Investor Equity. And then let's go through these inputs. So we have a target IRR, 6.5%. That looks good. We have a target flip date. We'll leave that there. And then the way that Tess's solver works is you need to give it bounds. You need to give it bounds to look in. So we'll do a max of 50%, a min of 30%. And what it's going to do is it's going to guess equity splits to nail this target 6.5% IRR. So let's just click solve and see what happens. All right, so it's going to try, it's going to guess and run. And then let's see what we get. Success! Equity split success. Nice. And we'll say okay to that. And as requested, we got 6.5%. So that's just a little example of how Tess's solver works. It's pretty cool. And then there's one more thing I want to show you that is also pretty cool. So all this stuff has really just been work on setting up the partnership and linking the project model to Tess so that the partnership is reading from it. What we can do is we can now change scenarios and see the effect of that scenario change in Tess. So if I go to my scenarios tab down here, I have this selector, and what I can do, I'm in the P50 scenario, I can change this to be the P75 scenario. And now let's go look at the dashboard and see what that did. Okay, so I changed scenarios. Tess detected that the inputs changed. It noticed that something is different and said, oh, you need to rerun the model. We have an answer here, but this is not the real answer for this case. You need to rerun so that you can see what the correct values are for this case. So I'm just going to click run and say okay. And now we can see that our IRR is now lower. We're getting a worse return, which makes sense because the P75 case implies lower energy generation, lower revenue, and therefore it's kind of a downside case versus P50, and we're going to get a worse return if we leave everything else the same. So this is really a great introduction to how to use Tess, how to get your project model in, and then how to start running scenarios and changing things. Of course, there's a lot more to cover. There's a lot more settings that you can play with and mess around with, and we'll talk about them in other videos. But for now, thank you, and I appreciate your time watching this video.